10 years, over 3,000 Falun Gong practitioners are confirmed dead. Killed from torture and abuse in custody.
This is really serious. This is an evil crime.
We're looking at genocide in China. We're looking at one of the biggest crimes against humanity in modern history.
This number comes from phone calls and emails from family and friends of the dead. Their stories are compiled by Falun Gong volunteers and hosted on an online database. But this number is only part of the story. Many people disappeared after the persecution began. Sent to prisons on catch-all crimes like endangering national security, or sent to labor camps and black jails without the formality of a trial. 3 years ago, a handful of people believed they knew what had happened to the people who disappeared.
Now, who were they? And where did they take them, or where did they die? Because in my mind, they're dead.
What happened to the disappeared? As far as we know, they're still there in these camps. Many of them were killed through organ harvesting, but the rest are still there, and they're the organ data bank for China.
This program attempts to shed light on an investigation the Chinese government doesn't want you to know about. An investigation into alleged organ murder in the world's #3 economy.
This is a form of evil we have yet to see on this planet. This is a new form of evil.
My family was just me, my mom, and my grandma.
Now 21, Chen Tong was born in northeast China's Weifang City. After gaining refugee status in the US, he now works the third shift at this printing press in New Jersey.
My family learned about Falun Gong through a friend, and I began practicing with my grandmother and mother.
10 years ago, Chen was 11 years old when the campaign against Falun Gong began.
Beginning on July 20th, 1999, and ever since then, I felt that my destiny had changed. The Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, began persecuting Falun Gong. Afterwards, for about 10 years now, my family has been broken up. My mom got arrested 6 times, and I got arrested twice when I was 11, along with my family.
Chen's family appealed for Falun Gong in Beijing and was punished. In 1999, his grandmother was taken into custody. He never saw her again.
For a long time, after my grandmother was persecuted to death, I was not aware that she had died. It was by chance that I heard about it during a family conversation. I was very upset at the time, because my grandma raised me since I was little. I was in a lot of pain. After I turned 12, I was separated from my mother. After that, police went to speak to my teacher at school, asking for me to be expelled. The teacher kept looking for me, and I was forced to quit school. I continued to be homeless for 6 years after that. I've not seen my mother since the beginning of 2004. Back then, I was just trying to keep from getting arrested by the Chinese police. But at the time, even though I didn't have a stable place to live, compared to the other Falun Gong practitioners in China who were being held by the CCP, I still felt I was in a much better place. time, we always clarified the truth to the Chinese people.
Chen was eventually taken into custody but was later released without being physically harmed. With help from other Falun Gong practitioners, he made it to Thailand before gaining refugee status in the US. Relatively few Falun Gong practitioners have made it out of China. The Laogai Research Foundation estimates that there are currently anywhere from 3 to 5 million people imprisoned in China's labor camps, prisons, and detention centers.
People over in China come over and take pictures.
Ethan Gutman estimates that around 800,000 of them are Falun Gong. From the beginning, practitioners have reported being physically, mentally, and sexually abused in the process of being transformed. But it wasn't until 2006 that 2 witnesses stepped forward and claimed that some practitioners were being murdered for their organs to meet the demands of China's booming transplantation industry. The allegations and subsequent investigation have been dismissed by the Chinese government. But a handful of people have dedicated themselves to publicizing the evidence around the world. This is their story. In 2006, the Epoch Times newspaper published interviews with 2 Chinese expats identified only as Annie and Peter. Annie claimed that her husband had been harvesting organs from Falun Gong practitioners at this hospital in northeast China's Shenyang city. Peter likewise claimed he had investigated the story for a Japanese newspaper. The Epoch Times later published a 3rd interview with an unidentified military doctor who confirmed the story. But when U.S. officials visited the main hospital in question, they didn't find anything unusual.
What happened at Sujitan is really still a completely open question. The fact that they didn't find anything didn't really prove anything. I mean, by Chinese construction standards, they were there 3 weeks later. Who knows? There's a million ways to sort of fill in the cracks by then.
But the allegation itself was difficult to believe, and the theatrics that surrounded the story didn't help. On one clear spring day in Washington, while Annie and Peter told their stories at a Falun Gong rally in McPherson Square, a couple blocks away, Dr. Wenyi Wang interrupted an official visit by the Chinese president, shouting at former U.S. President Bush to stop him from killing.
This was a huge problem in the way Falun Gong presented. They presented it as a big shocking revelation, whereas in fact they should have said, well, this is a big shocking revelation, but you know what? It's hardly surprising.
Hardly surprising. Because Caijing magazine and the South China Morning Post reported that over 90% of donors